consider primarily today the ontology of the Lamb, from the didactic to the visual. So the Lamb, of course, is a reference, it's the primary reference for Jesus Christ in the book of Revelation. It's used some 28 times. So let's go now back into the library there in Leonberg, Germany, and I want you to just dive into the content of Colossians 1:15 through 20. And notice, particularly as we read this, the pronouns, the he is, the him. Notice those because they are key. They're absolutely a key to comprehending the ontology of Christ. Here we go. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, in heaven and earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. You getting it? The ontology, or the deepest essence of who Christ is being presented to us here by use of the pronouns. Verse 17, he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And verse 18, and he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. I said earlier it was the most important message of the church. That's what I mean. Verse 19, couldn't get any higher than this. For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his cross. So this text presents a soaring, didactic confession of the supremacy of Christ. Paul's teaching it propositionally. Clear, logical, theological statements meant for the mind and the heart. But the book of Revelation sets them on fire, exploding visual glory to captivate our emotions with the same exact truth. Well, let's take this first phrase, Colossians 1:15. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. So this, found in Colossians, we're in the library. We're in the didactic presentation. Christ, bottom line, Christ perfectly reveals and embodies the invisible God. He radiates the exact imprint of God, similar to what another didactic statement made in Hebrews 1:3. He is the radiance of the glory of God, the exact imprint of his nature. So here's a question for you. Why, thinking back through the entire scope of the Bible, at least all the way back to Sinai, the third commandment, why is idolatry so strongly forbidden by God? Well, the answer to that is that God has his own idol of himself that he intends to provide. That's right. God wants Jesus to become your idol. It's okay. Idolize him all you want. In fact, idolize him to the fullest degree. That's your job. God has presented you the icon. It's the Greek word used. Icon means image. It's Jesus Christ. Well, let's walk a couple of blocks down to the IMAX and see if these statements that we've just read can be presented to us in a visual way. Well, right away in John's writings in Revelation 1, verse 12 through 16, John turns and sees the idol, the glorified Christ, standing among the 7 golden lampstands. Here we go. It says, this is an amazing vision that John's having, one like a son of man, clothed with a long robe and with a golden sash around his chest. The hairs of his head were white. Notice this word, like white wool, like snow. His eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze, refined in a furnace, and his voice was like the roar of many waters. His face was like the sun shining in full strength. This is the visual way of answering Paul's affirmations in Colossians 1:15 that he is the image of the invisible God. But what could possibly be behind that like language? A language of like. You saw John repeatedly utilized the like language. His hair was white like wool or snow. His eyes were like, his feet were like. Well, I want to suggest to you that the word like is kind of a portal. It's kind of a portal where we see explosions of visual transcendent realities that John simply had no words for. That's why he employed the word like. Like something above John's world. It wasn't actually in John's world. That's why he's stunned as he's watching this vision unfold for him, and he's conveying it, and that's all he's got to utilize is his own vocabulary, which is limited in terms of its ability to define or describe transcendent realities. Remember, Paul started out with, he is the image, something you can look at, of the invisible, something you can't see, God. So there's this gigantic chasm between the conscious existence of physical realities of John there on the Isle of Patmos and what he was actually seeing in the vision of Christ. The whiteness of his radiant hair was like white wool. It was like snow. It was not wool, and it was not snow. It was something incredibly transcendent, no doubt referring to purity, righteousness, holiness, unimaginable, similarly the flame of fire. Eyes like a flame of fire. His eyes were not flames of fire, were they? No. It was something transcendent, something far more transcendent, like a transcendent fire. Fire from the realm beyond what we could even imagine. And what would that be? Transcendent fire? Well, that's the eyes of the Lamb. We're dealing with ontology, dealing with trying to figure out the essence of who Christ is, and he has transcendent eyes. Similarly, his voice was like the voice or the roar of many waters. So his voice was not many waters, but rather transcendent, something much higher, a heavenly Niagara, so to speak. Well, again, his face, what about that? His face was, John says, like the sun shining in full strength. His face was not the sun shining in full strength. His face was like, it was a transcendent sun that John was seeing as he peered into the face of Jesus Christ. It was a sun like he could never imagine, a sun like he never saw when he wakes up in the morning and peers out his cave and he sees the sun. And no, this is completely different. This is some kind of heavenly fountain of radiant glory. Of course, at the sight of all this transcendence, what happens to our brother John? Well, he falls down as though dead. Revelation 1:17. I think you would too. I would too. It's the same reaction people have had throughout the Bible when they encounter similar visions. Isaiah chapter 6, woe unto me, Job. I have seen thee with the eyes, now hear you with the ears, and I humble myself in dust and ashes. Moses, Ezekiel, etc., all through the Bible, same response. as John, as though dead. Vision shows what Paul says Christ is the perfect radiant image of the invisible. So we're dealing with transcendence. I'm sorry. You cannot get a complete, total, precise, scientific analysis of the ontology of Christ. You're going to have to live with this huge chasm. But at least this gives you an idea. Here in the IMAX of Revelation, you get something of an idea. And so as we walk back to the library, back in our little town of Leonberg, Germany, Hebrews 1:3 is echoing through our minds. He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature.